Good morning, everyone. Welcome into a Thursday edition of On Cue. And how about this? A little Christmas edition, a little rapid fire to get you going. As always, I'm your host, Rich Quinones. We got about 45 or so to play with. Wanted to get in an episode today because we've got hoops all day, the rest of the day. But like I said, I wanted to get in 45 or so, a lot going on. Hope everyone had a good Sports Wednesday and you're enjoying your Christmas Day 2025. Get in on the conversation. We're on Rumble, we're on Kicks, we're on X, we're on the YouTube channel. And I already see the comments coming in, the corporation chiming in as they typically do. We're powered by our good friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee. 20% off your first purchase. And also, Three Brooks Bourbon, pretty nasty out there. Again, up and down the East Coast. So hopefully you guys are having a little hot toddy. I guess right around noonish. Isn't that acceptable? I mean, think about this. You got your coffee. I would say noon acceptable. Noon acceptable for a hot toddy. We'll get to some of these comments. Hashtag on cue. Also, I see some on kicks coming in as well. I wanted to get into these NFL games. These NFL games today, Netflix Prime, they got zero juice. They have no juice whatsoever. And then now there's reports coming out that Harbaugh and Lamar Jackson are having a rift down there in Baltimore. I want to get into that a little bit as well. But as I said, if you had your pick, if we backed you guys in a corner on Christmas Day and said, give me the NBA or give me the NFL, which direction you're going to watch? I feel as though you guys are still going to watch bad football as opposed to the NBA. So you got three today. Two on Netflix, Dallas and Washington playing out the string. The Lions, their last gas, taking on the Vikings. And then Denver ball, the Broncos taking on Kansas City. And wouldn't it be something if the Denver Broncos just went out and absolutely embarrassed the Kansas City Chiefs on Christmas Day, knowing that Kansas City doesn't have Mahomes, they're banged up, and here we go, right? You got a couple storylines. Denver, it's almost like this changing of the guard, at least for this season, with an opportunity to just really make a statement against a bad team. And these matchups are not intriguing. They're not. Right? I mean, look, you want to sit there and tell me that you got the Commanders in Dallas and that's a rivalry fine. You got the desperate Detroit Lions, okay, who have very slim playoff odds. Very slim. But now you're going to get who are you getting today? Max Bromser, right? Ugh. And then you got the Denver Broncos already locked in, but there's kind of unfinished business with the top seed right there. So the Denver Broncos know with two more wins, they can lock up the top seed in the AFC. The other storyline is this is possibly Travis Kelce's final home game if he decides to retire in a loss season. So you have, again, a little bit of storylines here and there, but there's no juice. There's none. There's absolutely none. And I'm wondering, is anyone actually going to dip into the NBA today? Is anyone actually going to dip in? I mean, listen, you got the Cavs and the Knicks. That's tipping off in about 5 minutes, noon Eastern time. You got the Spurs defending champ for bad NBA games. All right, let's open up. Man chimes in. Merry Christmas. Don't ever question the corporation's loyalty. Corporation's been very hit or miss over the last week. Michael is probably getting all fired up for Bronco ball, right? Merry Bronco Christmas. All right, that's not bad. Broncos are about to dismantle the Chiefs tonight. That's going to be an ugly, ugly game. Now, you might want to lay your hat on Denver and the points and put some money in the pocket. Can never question the corporation loyalty. Listen, all I'm saying is this. You guys got me on a Christmas Day edition of On Cue, and we got hoops all day long, right? We got different time zones. We got overseas. We got, I don't even know what the hell time it is in some of these other countries I'm going to be calling these games for. And there we go. And we're giving you a little power hour, a little 45 plus. Order of interest for sports. Bad NFL, NBA. Cornhole. Yeah, or you know what else is very prominent and famous today? You know what else is going on? You know what else is going on today? I believe it is the what kinda show? The Westminster what? Yes, I believe the dog show is going on today. Mark and Wallingford, happy holidays, Merry Christmas. Q, always good to hear from you. Well, I appreciate that, brother. Thoughts on that late game? I think Denver's going to absolutely wax Kansas City. I think they win it by at least 17. Sarge chiming in. Q, any thoughts on what's going on in Baltimore? I know you mentioned this yesterday. Do you think they're going to actually entertain a trade for Lamar Jackson? Well, you mean trading Lamar Jackson, which is probably going to be the biggest storyline going in. I had people yesterday. So when we were talking about the Ravens, and we'll get into that in a little bit, but here's where you're at in the NFL. The Detroit Lions are not a good football team. Washington and Dallas are not a good football team. They're just not. And Netflix and Prime, I mean, Netflix paid a substantial amount of money. I mean, think about the breakdown that Netflix, I pulled it up, 150 million for 2 weeks, 17 games. Like that is a major, major gamble, right? And I don't think even Netflix figured that 3 games with five, 2024 playoff teams. Now you end it with 4 sub 500 teams and 3 backup quarterbacks. That's not, that's not sexy. That's not appealing. I think we've been getting spoiled with some of these Sunday night football games. I think we've been getting spoiled with some of these Thursday night games. And we actually had a couple nice hits when we came into Saturday with that Bears and Packers game, right? But I think Netflix has to understand the Christmas Day game. I don't want to call it trash or garbage, but they're just not that good. They're just not that good. And you're banking on, right? You're kind of banking on um, getting the eyeballs away from the NBA. Like I feel you can be a diehard NBA fan, but the NFL is always going to take center stage. Like I heard Richard Jefferson basically say the NFL shouldn't let the NFL should have left Christmas to the NBA. And I guess the sentiment is you can have like Thanksgiving, leave the NBA, let them have Christmas, and that the NFL is trying to be petty. And that might be the case, but the NFL, I guarantee you, when it's all said and done, even bad football, you will get ratings with bad football games. You will get ratings with bad football games. I don't know what the ratings are going to be for the NBA. I really don't. But I have a feeling more people are going to watch the football. And I have a feeling more people will bet some of these games because you bet bad football games, they can be profitable. So, yeah, did it bite them in the ass? Did it bite them in the butt in that regard? Probably, but I don't think they care. It's just not a sexy schedule. It's just not. It's not a sexy schedule. And these games really don't have any juice whatsoever. I think the nation wants to see Denver go on the road and absolutely humiliate Kansas City. I think the nation is so tired of watching the friggin' Dallas Cowboys where you just sit there and say, okay, Washington, give me a win. And then Detroit has shown you that they're overrated and they're not a good football team and they're having a down year. Where you're going to hang your hat is when you look at these games coming up over the weekend. And that's Saturday. You have 2 very good games on Saturday. You have the Texans and the Chargers. Playoff implications. You got 2 teams that have won 10 or more games. And then you have the Ravens and the Packers, 2 teams that are very desperate to try to run the table and get some help, which leads me to this Ravens situation and Lamar Jackson. I mean, I had guys chiming in yesterday. I got to read off some of these comments. When we were talking about Harbaugh, I guess I made the point that Harbaugh's been around for 18 something odd years. He's had 10 plus seasons of 10 or more wins. He's gone to the playoffs how many times? He's won a Super Bowl, and yet some people think he's a horrible head coach. That was kind of the sentiment yesterday on the air. Guys were crushing me, killing me. I never said Harbaugh was a Hall of Fame head coach. What I said is there's always a shelf life. And if these reports are true, then listen, this is something that you have to monitor because if the Baltimore Ravens don't make the playoffs, okay, if they don't make the playoffs and Lamar Jackson doesn't finish out the season, or even if he's playing hurt and he's banged up and he doesn't look good, or they're in a tight game, say over the weekend, and Harbaugh has another, a boneheaded decision where I'm not going to give the ball to Derrick Henry in the second half, even though he's running ragged, he's running roughshod. Then the conversation in the offseason is going to be, can the Baltimore Ravens they've kind of peaked with the Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson, and Harbaugh, and who's going to go? And if there's a rift between the head coach and the franchise quarterback after 18 something odd years, 16, 17 years, my best guess is maybe Harbaugh goes first and then they try to move Jackson. I mean, I pulled up Harbaugh's coaching record. Like, you can't tell me that Harbaugh is not a good NFL head coach. He's won a lot of games. So this notion that Harbaugh stinks, the guy's won 170 games. He's gone to the playoffs 12 times. He's won 6 NFC North titles. They went 14-2 in 2019. He won the Coach of the Year. Oh, did I mention he won a Super Bowl? Did I mention he always seems to make the playoffs? Did I mention they always win 10 plus games a season? I mean, you can kind of lock them in. So for those to claim that Harbaugh's not a good head coach is ludicrous. Right? Sylvester chimes in, Harbaugh has never been a good coach. You don't know what the F you're talking about. Really? I mean, I just gave you the numbers. And I don't know what I'm talking about. You watch football? You're going to tell me this guy's not a good head coach? Listen, do some head coaches have bad in-game management? Do some head coaches have poor decisions? Do they make poor decisions? Yes, they do. They do. Sometimes you have poor decisions. Sometimes you don't know when to run the football. Sometimes you don't know when to go for it. Sometimes you don't know not to go for it. Sometimes you bench the quarterback too soon. I mean, we can go on and 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 on. On and on. But his track record speaks for itself. Harbaugh would get a job in a second. Is that you decide not to run the ball in the second half. That's on the head coach. So you want to get him for that? So be it. So be it. And I don't have a problem with that. But sometimes there are teams that would take a flyer on a head coach that's got equity built up in the NFL. Harbaugh has it. McCarthy has it. These retreads sometimes that we talk about. But this is going to be fascinating to see how this plays out. And then the other crazy news is that I saw that Connor Hughes was saying that if the Jets want to acquire the number 1 overall pick, now think about this. The negotiations, the conversation starts with 3 first-round picks, a pick swap in the first, and 2 additional first-rounders. So this is why this giant Raiders game, and the Raiders aren't going to have their tight end. He's not going to be playing. He's shut down for the rest of the season, Bauer. So the Giants, unfortunately, have an opportunity to win this frigging game, which scares the hell out of me. That is a king's ransom that you would have to potentially give up for the number 1 pick in April's draft. That is a king's ransom. Now, thank God the Giants, I would prefer the Giants, playing at home because they stink at home, but they're also bad on the road. They're 0-8 this season. And they're actually favored in this game. And I'll tell you this, maybe this is the game Geno Smith goes 20 of 28 for 288 and 4 touchdowns and lights up the secondary, and the Raiders get a win, which I'll feel very good about because, again, the Giants would be firmly supplanted right in that, getting that overall pick. But, man, I'll tell you, that is a king's ransom. Sal chimes in, Q, there's no riff in Baltimore. You got to leave this one alone. Lamar Jackson's not going anywhere. Harbaugh's not going anywhere. And anyone that commented in that Harbaugh's not a good head coach doesn't know what the hell they're talking about. Listen, I'm just reading off the comments that I got. That's all I'm saying. I'm just reading off the comments that I got. You guys are free reign, chime in, comment in. We like to get to all the comments, good, bad, and different. Coaches in the NFL, they try to be too cute. They try to be slick. They try to act like they're the smartest cat in the room, and sometimes it bites them in the fanny. Kevin chimes in. Q, wait, go back again? How much for the number one pick? Yeah, I just laid it out for you. A king's ransom. That's why, I have no problem if the Giants want to go a little conservative this weekend. This is, again, being reported from Connor Hughes. So this is where people think highly of Moore and or Mendoza, 1 and 2, top 2 quarterbacks. If the Jets want that pick, 3 first-round picks, right? 3, a pick swap in the first, and 2 additional first rounders. Wow. I mean, that is like, did I miss something with these 2 quarterbacks? That's like King's ransom. That's like King's ransom. I don't know. Am I giving that up for a Mendoza or more? That's a lot. That's a lot. And this is why it's so vital, right? It's so vital. Now remember, the Jets traded cornerback Sauce Gardner to the Colts. They got 2 firsts, 26 and 27. Plus they got the wide receiver Mitchell. And when they sent Williams to the Cowboys, they got second and 26, a first in 27. So they got a haul of draft picks, a haul of 5 first round picks over 26 and 27. So because they had this haul, then you would say, okay, well, this is one of the reasons that they did what they did. They got back what they got back because they've been eyeing up a quarterback, because they realized at some point in the season, Taylor, Cook, and certainly Justin Fields were not going to be the answer for the franchise going forward. Justin Fields showed him who he really is. He's a backup journeyman quarterback, period. He's not a high-level starting caliber quarterback in the NFL. He's just not. So they realize, okay, we stockpile. We're moving some players. Sauce to the Colts. Williams to the Cowboys. Let's get back some equity. Let's bank it. Let's let it sit and marinate and grow and get a little interest on it. And here we go. Now, come April, if the Giants have the number 1 draft pick, then we'll give up the farm. But man, that is a king's ransom. That's a king's ransom. That's a lot. It goes back for years of what we talked about. Coaches outsmart themselves. Yes, always. Always. I don't get it. Like sometimes we're watching these games as fans and we even know what the right call is, which is kind of funny when you think about it. And we're fans, right? We're not on the category. McCarthy was like that. Brian Daboll was like that. Doug Peterson was like that. Sirianni was like that. Shanahan, we've seen him do that. Campbell, Campbell, it's just crazy. Campbell was supposed to be the smartest man in the room a couple seasons ago. And then you go back to the NFC Championship. You blew the big lead on the road against the 49ers. You could have iced a game. You could have had an opportunity to win the game. And instead, the 4th down play, which I don't have a problem with, the execution was poor. I didn't like who they were throwing it to. And that was your best shot. Like the door is slammed shut. The door has slammed shut for some of these teams. I think it's slammed shut for Detroit. And if Buffalo doesn't get it done this year, I think it's slammed shut for them. I think it's also slammed shut for the Baltimore Ravens. All these new, young teams, young quarterbacks, right? Young quarterbacks, they're emerging. And the game is changing. The game is constantly changing. And these coaches want to be so smart with the analytics and playing the percentages. And then, now it's commonplace on the 35-40, 4th and 2. You're going for it on your own, 35-40, right? But 15, 20, 25, 30 years ago, oh my God, you got to punt that football. You got to take the 3. And sometimes there is something called being too aggressive in the NFL. And sometimes these coaches do get too aggressive. All right, 12:15, quick timeout. We'll go through these games. We got about 15 to 20 play with, little power hour edition on cue on this Christmas day. Hope everyone's having a wonderful holiday. Don't forget you can get social with us. Very easy to do. We're on SR 1029 FM The Game, my YouTube channel, Kicks, Rumble, X as well. If you get social with me, that's at Rich Q on Q on IG and X, and of course TikTok Rich Q on the mic. Quickie timeout. We'll come back. Got a lot more comments coming in on some of these games. No buzz, no juice on Christmas Day with the NFL. Netflix, ooh, brutal. So we'll get your comments in, and then we'll go over these games as well. Quick timeout. We'll come back on the other side. All right, let's get into these games before we get out of here. I mentioned these games have zero buzz, but we do like to break them down and go over them. By the way, new edition of Back Your Play tomorrow will drop. Lloyd and I will cut that. Lloyd Vance, host of Lloyd Vance's Insider Football. That'll air Saturday and Sunday, 11 to 12 on TV 48, WWON in New York. You got the Cowboys laying 8.5 on the road. Cowboys are not a very good road team. The total is 50.5. This is kind of a high number. You know, Dak Prescott has had a pretty good season for the Dallas Cowboys. He's going to throw for well over 30 touchdown passes, only 10 picks. He's leading the league. I think he's second or third, I should say, in yards passing with about 4,200. They run the football really well, and they have playmakers. CeeDee Lamb over 1,000 yards, George Pickens over 1,000 yards receiving, but yet they can't stop anyone. And I think that trend continues today. As bad as Washington has been, and they've been a bad football team this year. They have. They've been a bad football team. They're going to, obviously, Daniels will get the start. And, you know, he just, I'm sorry, he's inactive. Pardon me. He's inactive. I apologize. Daniels is inactive. So Mariota right now is also inactive. So now you've got a bunch of backups that are going to go out there, which is never a good thing. I mean, this team is so banged up. And it's just, I feel like Dallas is going to have a field day and put up points. Josh Johnson actually is going to get the start. Remember, Daniels, they thought he was going to have an opportunity to go. No, it's going to be Josh Johnson. So this is just an ugly game. And Mariota was ruled out because he hurt his quad against Philadelphia Eagles. So they had to go out and sign a couple players off the practice squad. And listen, it's going to be an ugly game. It really is. I mean, Josh Johnson, this will be his first start in 4 or 5 years. So no Daniels, no Mariota. It's been just an absolute, just a debacle for the Washington Commanders. This is a team that had a great run off of that just miraculous win midseason against the Bears that catapulted them straight through. They beat the Eagles late. They made the playoffs. They had to run all the way to the NFC Championships where they got outclassed by the Philadelphia Eagles. But everyone was talking about Quinn and Daniels, and here we go. And obviously, Daniels, he's just been just constantly injured this year. I mean, it's just one of these seasons where you start 17 games and then you come back and you only play 7. And it's unfortunate. And he's never been able to get off the map. He just never has been able to get off the map. So they've got so many injuries going on. I think the Cowboys have a field day. I know the line has jumped, as I mentioned, 8.5. It'll close right around 8.5, 9. The total is 50. Commanders will move the football against a bad Dallas team, but Dallas should beat them. This has the makings of a, 33-13 type of game. And it might stay under. I don't know. I mean, 50 and a half. Dallas can move the football. They just can't stop anyone. Now, can Josh Daniels get these guys up and down the field? Who knows? Lions and the Vikings. Detroit is laying 7.5. Detroit Lions are in trouble. They're in trouble. And if you look at the scenario for the Detroit Lions to make the playoffs, it ain't a pretty one. It ain't a pretty one. I mean, it's basically one scenario. I mean, that's all it is. I mean, their playoff chances are hanging by a thread. Obviously, they have to win today, and that can kind of buy them a little time. And then they hope that Green Bay loses on Saturday night. If both that happens, at least the Lions have an opportunity entering week 18 against the Bears, who have already clinched the NFC North due to the Green Bay loss. So maybe Chicago rest players, or maybe Chicago decides we're playing for a different seeding here. So you can't get a hold of yourselves. The Lions basically have picked the worst time to lose a couple games, and they've lost 2 in a row. And that was their first losing streak in more than 3 years. So if you can't go out and beat Max Bromser and the 7-8 Vikings, I don't care if they won 3 in a row. You don't deserve to make the playoffs. So that's pretty much the scenario. Lions have to win their final 2 games to finish 10-7. The Packers have to lose their final 2 games to finish 9-7-1. A tie gets the Packers into the playoffs, since they would have had 2 ties, which the NFL splits as a win and a loss for tiebreaker purposes. In that rare case, the Packers own the tiebreaker over the Lions due to sweeping the head-to-head season series. Green Bay hosts Baltimore in week 17, and they visit Minnesota in week 18. So if you're a Lions fan, you're rooting hard for Baltimore that still has a glimmer of hope to make the playoffs. You're hoping that Baltimore somehow beats Green Bay. You get to win today. Then you've got an opportunity to close out the season, win a win. If Green Bay trips up, the Lions sneak in. I don't think it's going to happen. I just don't. I think the Lions are done. So that's a playoff scenario for the Lions. And then you got Denver and Kansas City. The line is 13.5. The total is very low in this one, 37.5. And a lot of that has to do with who's going to be quarterbacking for Kansas City. I mean, no Minshew, no Mahomes. Can I give you the name of Chris Oladokun from South Dakota State? Oh, my God. This is just brutal. I mean, absolutely. You can't make this stuff up. Plus, Rice is not playing. Thornton's not playing. The cornerback's not throwing. Denver might absolutely put up 50. All the years Kansas City picked on Denver, Denver might turn around and absolutely just steamroll them today. Just steamroll them. I did see the story too. The Chiefs agreed to a deal to play in Dome in the state of Kansas. That'll be in 2031. So I know everyone's saying, oh, playing a dome, playing a dome. No, football is meant to be played outside. So I don't want to hear that kind of nonsense. Let me squeeze in a couple more comments. Dan chimes in, Q, it's been a disappointing year for the Lions, but I think I tend to agree with you. I don't really know if Campbell is the answer going forward. Dan Campbell has turned the franchise around. Dan Campbell has changed the culture of the Detroit Lions. They're not perennial losers. You're allowed to have a down season. This team doesn't have an identity. They just don't. And if you go back, the loss to the Vikings pretty much changed the whole course of the Detroit Lions season. It really did. And the games that we've seen Detroit win in the past, they haven't been able to do that. They just haven't been able to do that. And I'm talking about that game they lost early on. They were a 4-1 football team. They got humbled by the Chiefs. They blew out Tampa, and then they came back down to earth, and they lost to the Vikings 27-24. And McCarthy played well. He had a couple of touchdown tosses. He ran for that score late. He only threw for a buck 43, but Minnesota was able to get to Jared Goff. They sacked him 5 times, and the Lions couldn't run the football, and they gave up 142 yards on the ground. That kind of changed the course of their season. It really did. It changed the whole complexion of their season. And they really haven't been able to be that consistent team where they're ripping off 4, 5, 6 wins in a row. Go and look at it. They come back and they beat the Commanders, but then they no show offensively against the Eagles. They got a gift against the Giants in overtime. They lost to the Packers, beat the Cowboys. Then again, they could not stop the Rams, and they had a horrible loss in the Steelers. So you're alternating wins, losses, wins, losses. It's not going to get it done. And Jared Goff has actually had a pretty decent season. I mean, if you were to sit there and say you're going to have a 4,000-yard pass for 32 touchdowns, only 6 picks, he's played well, or 5 picks. I think this is the lowest interceptions he's ever thrown in his career in a season. Plus, the most touchdowns he's ever thrown is 37. He's at 32, so he might be able to get 6 more in 2 games to get to 38, which would be a career high. They just defensively, they've got issues and the inconsistency. And sometimes we're talking about the decision making and the play calling by the head coach. It has a lot to be desired at times. It really does. So this is their last gasp to answer Dan's question. And then Rye chimes in on Kansas City. Q, what do you think the Chiefs need to do to regroup? If you go in the offseason, we don't know what's going to happen to Kelsey. You want a healthy Patrick Mahomes. I still think Kansas City is going to either have to draft a quarterback or trade for a quarterback in the offseason because these injuries. Patrick Mahomes is not going to be 100%. He's not going to be his same, the old Patrick Mahomes, even if he's ready by, say, mid-September. Because the worst thing about those types of injuries is that you want to try to overcome it mentally. Not the physical aspect, but the mental hurdle. Because you're always afraid, okay, if I cut the wrong way, if that happens, am I going to hurt my knee again? Am I going to hurt my ACL, my MCL, my ACL? So there's always this hesitation. Kansas City's due. They are allowed to have an off year. I don't think Andy Reid's going anywhere, but this team needs to, they have to bring in, they've got to figure out the ground game. Pacheco's not the answer. Hunt's not the answer. You need a every down back. You need a guy that's going to carry it 20, 25 times. They need weapons on the outside. The defense, they got to get younger. And it's just a down year. They had a great run, but you are allowed to have a down year in the NFL. All right, 12:27. Last time out. We'll come back. We'll close out on the other side. All right, couple of minutes to play with. Just a reminder, tomorrow, Football Friday edition of On Q, powered by our good friends over at Play It Again Sports. 2 locations, Deptford and Mount Laurel. Get in on the conversation. Follow me on TikTok. We're posting a lot of content on TikTok as well as the YouTube channel at Rich Q on Q, X at Rich Q on Q. Of course, IG, same handle, at Rich Q on Q. We are also on Kicks. That's very easy to check out. And if you guys can, we love for you to follow me there as well. The channel is called Talka Talka, and that's all you got to do. You got to put in there Talka Talka. That's it. And then you guys can check out what we're doing on Kicks. I want to remind everyone to also download the Odyssey app and search Coastal Sports Digital Network. We got some good plans for 2026, which is right around the corner on this Christmas Day. But we wanted to chime in for about 15, 20, 25 plus minutes and talk a little NFL. I mentioned the NBA. So the NBA thinks they're going to compete. Cavaliers all over the Knicks right now, early on in the first 23-14. But you've got your fill of the NBA today with 5 games. As I mentioned, you got the Cavs, you got the Knicks, and then you'll cap it off with the Timberwolves and the Nuggets. Let me see if I can squeeze in a couple more. Nick and Chester chiming in. Q. I'm not going to sit there and tell you that I think Harbaugh is a bad coach. I'm not going to sit there and tell you he's a great coach, but I got a problem with a head coach that doesn't recognize when the running back is running the football well. You're talking about Derrick Henry and not giving him the carries, and those are all very fair criticisms. I understand it. I agree with you. But as I alluded to, you also have to look at the body of work. Let's not go crazy. The guy's won a lot of football games. He's gone to the playoffs a lot of times, didn't have a lot of losing seasons, and won a lot of divisions, won a Super Bowl. It's just, is it possible that the shelf life when it comes to a guy like Harbaugh is coming to a close? I mean, if he's got to keep, again, if he's got to keep answering questions, that's never a good thing. Omega Man chimes in. Q. Whoa, 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 whoa. If the Ravens trade Jackson, I'm out. I'm a diehard Ravens fan, as you know. But for any reason they actually do it, it proves they're unserious as a franchise. They hate winning, and to prove that they don't care about their fans. The offensive line, Harbaugh, and Zach Orr are the problems. Also, wide receiver number 2, but that's a luxury issue enjoying the content queue. Thank you. I don't know what to tell you. I don't. I really don't. I just I always, like I said, man, I look at I think what happens is the organization is starting to become critical of Lamar Jackson. And I think his personality is he's sensitive, right? Wade chimes in. Q. Somebody tell Harbaugh that Tyler Huntley, in fact, does not do everything Lamar effing Jackson does. So I think Lamar Jackson is a very good quarterback, and I like Lamar Jackson. I do. You know, he's kind of a smoking guy, kind of that, the kid, right? Um, in the adult body, and uh, I think Lamar Jackson gets a lot of criticism. I think it's unwarranted. I understand he's the franchise quarterback, but sometimes you also have to look past that and go to the play calling, the coordinators, and the head coach. Scotty Boy chimes in. Q. Perfectly said. Thank you. Harbaugh turns around. He benches Derrick Henry for 12 plus minutes in the fourth quarter. And all of a sudden, the Baltimore media is blaming Lamar Jackson. What a bunch of clowns. Yeah, I don't really listen to what's going on in Baltimore. I can just tell you that, again, if we're being serious, look, it's very easy. I know people will sit there and say Harbaugh should have been fired years ago. And we can sit there and say coaches choke games away, but players also have to make plays. And some of the games, and I'll give you the perfect example. I remember the game where Baltimore was beating the Giants a couple years ago, 20-10, with under 6 to play. High snap, Lamar takes it instead of just killing the play, eating the ball, throwing it away. He tries to throw across his body. It's picked off by Love, and the Giants score. They get the ball back, and they win the game late. That's on the quarterback. That's not on the head coach. It's just not. So you can pinpoint a lot of games and you can sit there and say he's the reason Lamar Jackson is never going to see a Super Bowl as long as he's there. It also works both ways. Not all those games, all those losses fall on the head coach. It's a bad pattern. But players also have to, again, um, execute. And I know he basically, Harbaugh came out and said, look, we don't really talk about the anonymous type. And look, the guy's been around the block, man. He knows. He knows how the game is played, period. He knows. Harbaugh is a football lifer. You know it, and I know it. Jim and John, they're football lifers. And you might not like their style. You might not like their personality, and that's okay. But I'm not going to sit there and say one's a glorified special teams coach masking as a head coach when he's won a lot of football games. So you're talking about games that were blown. Well, then who do we give credit to when the games are won? So the head coach gets killed for blaming all these games. And the head coach doesn't get credit for winning almost 175 games in his career, not including playoffs. Overall, a buck 80, right? Finboy chimes in. Q, what do you think is going to happen with Tua? It feels as though he signed that contract, hasn't lived up to it. He's ran its mouth, and he hasn't backed it up. I think you kind of nailed it. I think you kind of nailed it with Tua. Signed the contract based on what he did, when he threw for 4,000 yards and the offense was clicking, got paid, injury prone, hasn't been the same quarterback. I think the concussions have been a major issue with Tua. And look, you lose some offensive players. That's never a good thing. But he said some things that you're like, come on, man. You're not really the leader on this team. If you were the leader, you would act like a leader and you wouldn't throw your teammates under the bus. And that's something that he's done frequently. That is what he's done frequently. Cute as Bronco ball win out. I think they absolutely blast Kansas City tonight. This might be Bo Nix sitting midway through the fourth. Look, the best thing to happen to Denver was that loss because you were asking them to win 17 straight. It was a hell of a winning streak. And if people want to sit there and say it was smoke and mirrors, so be it. But good teams find ways to win. And they were coming from behind in a lot of these games, which shows me they got character. They're a tough team. And you need that when you're a young team going into the playoffs, because young teams with young quarterbacks and young skilled, possession players, possession receivers, running back, skilled players, you don't know any better. You don't know any better. Jacksonville humbled them. They needed to get smacked in the mouth. That was a good test. You need to get cracked in the jaw once in a while, and Jacksonville basically did that. Jacksonville humiliated them. Let's just call it for what it is. They could put up 50. They could have put up 50. That's how good Jacksonville looked the other day. Okay, so you burn that film and you move on. You take it out on Kansas City. And then if the division happens to be on the line, or number one seeding, I should say, happens to be on the line, you get the win against the Chargers. And you get that bye. That's the key. That's the key for the Denver Broncos. You get a bye, and all you have to do is win one game, and you're hosting the AFC Championship. Think about that for a minute. That's why in the NFL, getting home field advantage means everything. Everything. You got 9, 10 teams. A lot is at stake this weekend. A lot. It's pretty easy. Denver clinches the AFC West. They win. The Chargers lose to Houston. So you're going to be a big fan of the Texans on Saturday. And Denver clinches the number one seed in home field advantage. Win. Chargers lose versus Houston. Plus a New England loss at the Jets. Now, I don't think that's happening. Plus a Buffalo loss to Philly. That can happen. And then a Jacksonville loss in Indianapolis. That's not going to happen. But it's still there for the Denver Broncos. Win out. Win out. Texans win. You're in. Jacksonville, they can clinch the AFC South with a win and a Houston loss at the Chargers. New England pretty much can clinch the AFC East. They get the win, plus Buffalo loses to Philly. That's likely. That can happen. Pittsburgh clinches the AFC North with a win, or Baltimore loses to Green Bay on Sunday. And remember, so Pittsburgh's playing this game at 1 o'clock. They're in, who knows what the hell, Baltimore, they might turn around and just cave in against Green Bay. Oh, we got nothing to play for, which helps. Now it potentially hurts Detroit and helps Green Bay if Detroit were to win today, because they got a scoreboard watch. Carolina, you can win the NFC South. Win in Tampa Bay loses to Miami, which is a possibility. There is so much at stake this weekend in the NFL. It's absolutely crazy. It really is. This season is unlike any other season. But to go back to your point and your question, your comment, yeah, I believe they can. I believe if the Denver Broncos get home field advantage, they can make a deep run into the playoffs. They can get to the Super Bowl. And the reason I picked them to get to the Super Bowl and win it, I knew their defense would be good. I didn't think it would be that great or as great as it is. But I also thought the offense was going to be a little more creative. Bo Nix, another season under his belt, run the football. They made the move for Ingram. They got some wide receivers. Sean Payton, even though he probably drives Denver fans crazy, supposed to be that innovator, that creative offensive mind. And I liked them because I thought these other teams were getting older, i.e., Baltimore, Buffalo, Kansas City. And I wasn't entirely sold on Herbert and the track record of the Chargers. I certainly wasn't sold on the Texans. I didn't think their defense was going to be very good. I didn't think Indianapolis was going to jump out to an 8-2 record with Daniel Jones. When they signed Jones and Richardson went down, the first thing I said is Daniel Jones is going to be started for the rest of the season. And that was a great story. And they ran the football well. Jones goes down. Taylor's been hit or miss. And here we have it. So there's opportunity for the Denver Broncos to make a run here. But, I say that with caution in this regard. I can also make a case for Buffalo. I could make a case for New England. I can make a case for the Texans. But the one thing those teams don't have to worry about is what? They don't have to deal with the Kansas City Chiefs. They don't have to deal with Kansas City or the Mahomes mystique. Mahomes to Kelsey. Kansas City at home. Andy Reid in the playoffs. Arrowhead Stadium in January. You don't want to play there. No one's got to worry about that. You rarely get seasons like this in the NFL. You rarely, and as a fan, the best seasons to enjoy are the ones you never saw coming. New England, Denver, Chicago. I don't think those fans felt going into the season that, hey, we're going to win some games. It's going to be fun, but look where you're at. It's like a 180. I remember the runs that the Giants had. 2007, I knew they had momentum when they played New England tough. 2011, it was unexpected. But they ran the ball well. Eli played like an MVP. Victor Cruz came out of nowhere, and they had a great run. As a fan, you sit back, you enjoy these types of seasons because you never know when they're going to happen. I mean, if the Chargers get to the Super Bowl, am I going to be shocked? No. If Texans get to the Super Bowl, am I going to be shocked? No. If the Bears, you can get a Denver and Chicago Super Bowl. You can get a Chargers and Bears Super Bowl. There's not a great team in the NFL. There isn't. There is not a great team in the NFL where you sit there and say, that team scares the hell out of me. They're all flawed. One week we thought it was Tampa. Then we thought it was Detroit. Then we thought it was the Eagles. Then we thought it was the Rams. Then we thought it was Denver. Then we thought it was New England. Then we thought for a little bit, Kansas City's back. There's not a dominant team in the NFL. That's what makes this season so rare. And that's why I think there's pressure on a team like Buffalo coming out of the AFC. You don't have to worry about the bugaboo. You don't have to worry about your Achilles heel. You don't have to worry about, the monster under your bed, the Kansas City Chiefs, or the monster in the closet, Patrick Mahomes. You don't have to worry about that anymore. You slayed that dragon. Well, they slayed themselves. But you still got to worry about Denver. You still got to worry about New England. Still got to worry about the Texans. Still got to worry about the Chargers. And you might not have to worry about Lamar Jackson in Baltimore. So if you were to ask me right now, pressure, right? The most pressure? Like who's got the most pressure come January? It's got to be the Buffalo Bills. It really does. Detroit's not going to make the playoffs. I just don't look at Detroit and say, man, you're going to make a run here. Buffalo is kind of the team where, okay, if not now, when? Baltimore's been hit or miss all season long. They've got issues. That coach, Again, the shelf life might be running out on Harbaugh. Lamar Jackson, are they going to move him in the offseason, as crazy as it sounds? Buffalo, Allen, Cook, McDermott, get it done. Get it done. There's no pressure on Chicago. There's no pressure on Green Bay. They're a banged up team. There's no pressure on Carolina. Green Bay loses Parsons. Jordan Love's banged up. There's really no pressure on Jacksonville. No one thought Jackson was going to be 11-4. The Texans, we were writing them off in October. Now they're 10-5, one of the best defenses in the NFL. Is there pressure on the Philadelphia Eagles to come out of the NFC? Sure, you're the defending Super Bowl champs. You want to right the ship? And it might open up again in the NFC for the Philadelphia Eagles. The Rams are flawed. Seattle is flawed. They're good teams. They're not great teams. To me, Buffalo, it's there coming out of the AFC. And then you take your shot. You roll the dice in the Super Bowl if you get that far. But these teams coming out of the NFC, Chicago's got a young quarterback, right? San Fran's got a young quarterback. Green Bay's got a young quarterback. These are young teams. Carolina's got a young quarterback. Jalen Hurts still is a young quarterback in the NFL. He's been around the block, no doubt. He's Super Bowl MVP. They are defending Super Bowl champs. They don't look like it. They haven't played like it. They're not a juggernaut, but they're 10-5, and they locked up the NFC East. I believe the team that gets home field advantage, and this is not a stretch. But I believe the team that gets home field advantage in the AFC and the NFC, they will be the teams that represent their conferences in the Super Bowl. That's what I believe. If Seattle gets home field advantage, I believe Seattle will represent the NFC. If the Rams get it, if the 49ers get it, they will represent the NFC. If Denver gets into the AFC, all you need is that one game. You win one and you're hosting. And that's a tough ask to ask anyone to go on the road in a championship game and win. All right, got to start wrapping it up. Don't forget, busy Friday edition of On Cue tomorrow, powered by our good friends over at Play It Again Sports, Fresh Roasted Coffee, 3 Brooks Bourbon, and Get Ready with Tea. Also, download the AUDACY app, and you can search Coastal Sports Digital Network. Lloyd Vance and I will drop a new edition of Back Your Play tomorrow. That'll be up and running Saturday and Sunday, 11 to 12. We'll go through all the games from a betting standpoint. We'll recap what transpired today with the 3 unsexy games, by the way. That'll be Saturday and Sunday, 11 to 12 on TV 48 WWON. And also check out my latest episode on Overseas Dimes. That's on the YouTube channel, my basketball show. We focus on a lot what's happening outside the States. But Ray Weathers, former Michigan State standout, played under Izzo. Unbelievable backstory, where his brother was murdered. He had offers all over the place. Could have played at Georgetown with AI. Could have played at St. John's. Could have played Kansas. Could have played Duke. Could have played Carolina, I believe. I mean, great insight. 40-something odd minutes he gave me. Definitely check that out on the YouTube channel. That's the latest edition of Overseas Dimes on Channel 82 in Bermuda. So definitely check that out. Tomorrow, back in the saddle, 4 to 6 on a drive time edition, a Football Friday edition of On Cue. Appreciate you guys chiming in, hanging with me for about an hour on Christmas Day. And I know you guys could have been doing a lot more fun things than just tuning in for a little bit, but it's greatly appreciated. Have a fun day with your family and your friends. As always, be safe, be sound. I hope Santa was very good to you guys as well. You didn't get any coal in the stockings. And for those that need a win today from a betting standpoint, the best of luck with you guys in that regard. So you got 3 in the NFL. You got a heavy dose of the NBA today. We'll recap everything tomorrow from 4 to 6 live right here on SR 1029 FM The Game, my YouTube channel, Kicks, Rumble as well. Subscribe. You'll see all the platforms. You can catch the audio as well. And as I mentioned, you guys have a wonderful Christmas. Feliz Navidad. Have a good day. We will talk to you mañana at 4. As always, be safe, be sound. I'm Rich Quinones. This has been On Cue. Hasta luego, buen día.